Just in the last couple hours, I got to watch this game on NFL Network, NFL Replay, Steelers-Jets. Just a pretty big upset. One of my few losses this week. I went 13-3 to pad my season standing to I think 103-54, which is pretty good. I'm really happy with that. But in any case, this Pittsburgh offensive line has been really poor pretty much most of the season. Most of the time, Roethlisberger escapes pressure and makes a play on the run, but today he didn't, and you saw, that finally come back to bite them. This is the third time this year, Pittsburgh lost to an opponent considered vastly inferior, Arizona, Denver, and now New York. So this is something they got to figure out. They keep falling to sleep after, they string together wins, and then they go to sleep, it seems, and just allow themselves to get upset. And obviously that's not okay. They gave up they pretty much surrendered their opportunity to get a first-round bye in the AFC playoffs with that loss. Like I said, the offensive line couldn't play well. Santonio Holmes got hurt, and players like Hines Ward and Nate Washington couldn't step it up. Willie Parker couldn't generate much of a ground game, so, I don't think this is the team that can beat New England. I think that come December 9th, I think Pittsburgh is going to go into New England. I think it's in New England, and I think New England's going to posterize them and prove that this is a two-team race right now in the NFL. I still think it's Indy and New England. These two teams are going to meet at the end, and that's going to be the real Super Bowl. That's really how honestly I feel. And, Pittsburgh was supposed to be the team that could challenge them easily, but, I see a team that's not ready to be elite. Obviously, they can play very well most weeks, but when you look past games, you're not ready to be elite, I think. If you forget about an opponent looking ahead to the next week or the next couple weeks or whatever, that's a sign of a team that's not mature enough sometimes to be elite yet. So, at this point, their only realistic shot at getting a first-round bye would be to upset New England. I don't see it, so. And as for the Jets, things are good. Well, as good as they can be. They got the win. It was finally something to cheer about, at least. They had a 10-point lead. They finally didn't give it up, because they've been doing that all year. They get these leads, and then they give it up. Clemens played pretty smart football, other than the one interception he really shouldn't have thrown that almost cost them the game. He was pretty lucky about that. But he played real well. Thomas Jones had an excellent game. Pittsburgh could not bring him down, which is a knock against Pittsburgh, but Thomas Jones played real well. The defense generated massive amounts of pressure for the first time all season. You get the feeling that Mangini came out of the bye completely changing the game plan, and we saw a different Jets team out there. Maybe they don't have a lot of talent, but they maximized it on Sunday for the first time maybe this whole season. And, that's, obviously they're still playing for draft picks, but it's nice to see some hope for the future with Kellen Clemens and such. Dallas, Washington, it's fun watching Dallas right now, and even New England, even though I don't really like New England, but they're doing something this year that didn't happen last year. They don't have a problem with just throwing the ball to their star receivers repeatedly. I get the feeling like, I go into this in my article, you can read more into this on my article, but I get the feeling that last year, Dallas was almost afraid to throw to the ball to T.O. a lot, especially when they had Drew Bledsoe in there. They seemed content with using him as like a decoy, and they wanted to spread the ball out as evenly as they could, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but this year Dallas is doing better than Dallas last year. Part of that is because T.O., if he has a big game in 2 days, will equal his production from last year in 16 games, with 5 games left to play. So, they're just throwing it up to him and letting him have huge game after huge game. The last 5 games, he has 9 touchdowns, 650 yards, almost 40 receptions, And they're letting him just run wild. And last year it just didn't happen. It seems like the Cowboys really put a lot of emphasis on spreading the ball out, and sometimes that can be a hindrance. This year they're just throwing it to T.O. and letting things work out on their own, and they're 9-1. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, T.O. and Romo field the big win over the Redskins that pretty much ices the division. But I got to give credit to Washington, Jason Campbell played real well, maybe his best game of his career so far. Santana Moss finally had a good game, and they overcame the inability to run the ball. London Fletcher's having a fantastic season. His numbers are bloated for a couple reasons, but he's having a good season. So, Washington had the opportunity to win this game and blew it, but they played well. So, good job. And the Rams and 49ers, glad I didn't get this game. Torrey Holt got his touchdown, and he had a solid game early, and for the rest of the game it was just a battle of field goals and defense, so I'll pass, thank you. But, these Rams, ever since their point explosion against the Saints, people were thinking that, they're healthy now, so they're going to throw up a bunch of points for the rest of the season, maybe win some games, but, I didn't see it out there, just 13 points. They managed to protect the ball reasonably well, but 13 points against the 49ers, I don't know. Obviously Jackson is healthy again, but that offensive line still has a ton of problems, and 49ers offense remains anemic. Their receivers dropped like 2 or 3 touchdown passes that could have tied the game, maybe even won it. Pretty pathetic there. I think Dilfer played as well as you could have hoped. But ultimately, what can you do when your receivers are dropping passes like that? And what was with kicking that field goal with like 2 minutes left or whatever? I mean, obviously the 49ers had a chance to win it later, but they didn't. So you really have to question that decision. I mean, I know they did get the ball back, but I don't get kicking it in that situation. I don't. Okay, Patriots Bills, this was another bashing, really exciting. Same thing with Moss. This year, the Patriots are just throwing the ball up for Moss and letting him get it play after play after play. Last year in Oakland, it wasn't like that for Moss. They were almost afraid to throw him the ball. It almost looked like the times. This year, it's not happening, and it's a lot funner to watch. 4 touchdowns in one half, monster game. Brady continues his torrid streak. He needs to average 2 touchdowns a game to break Manning's record. You got to believe it's going to happen. Maroney finally got a touchdown. The defense forced turnovers and played well. Just an all-around excellently played game. As for Buffalo, I think they needed to go deep more often than they did. I think the strength of this team lies in the ability to go deep with Parrish and Reed and Evans. Especially with Lynch out. I think they should have gone deep more often. And obviously, one thing, TMQ covers this better than I can. Washington and Buffalo both used cover 2 defenses in which no one person covers Owens or Moss. That's why they were allowed to have big games. I think that when teams play Dallas and New England in the future, teams need to just put a guy man-to-man on Owens and Moss and tell him cover him no matter what. Because this cover 2 thing is supposed to prevent the big play, but right now it's allowing a big play. So I want to see like next week Lito Shepherd go one-on-one with Randy Moss, maybe with safety help over the top, but he needs to be in man coverage. I think that's the best thing. And finally, Broncos and Titans. Without Albert Haynesworth, the Titans defense just looked pretty poor out there. So the Broncos got these big plays, the punt return, the passing touchdowns, the one running touchdown. Vince Young had statistically one of the best games of his season, but turned it over a couple times and ultimately didn't win the game. His receivers dropped balls, so you can't blame that on him. That's just the Titans. Titans receivers got to be better than that, especially like Bo Scaife. They were depending on him to have a big year, and it's not happening. I'm really happy with how Jay Cutler's progressing. Liked what I saw out of this Hall fellow out of the backfield with Travis Henry and Selvin Young hurt. And, like I said, I think this Broncos team is going to win the division now. And as for Tennessee, they got to compete with Cleveland mainly for the for the wild card. If they get Albert Haynesworth back, I think they can do it. But without Haynesworth, this is a completely different team that cannot stop other teams' offenses. So it's tricky to say right now. But, good game for Denver. I had fun watching it.